Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight in Our News, the Prime Minister announces curfew changes. Plus, shots fired near the magistrate's court. Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Topping news tonight, the Prime Minister announcing several changes to the emergency order, including shortened curfew hours and additional perks for fully vaccinated individuals. Jasmine Brown has more.
One of the biggest announcements the Prime Minister made during his communication today was the lifting of some restrictions, including the extension of curfews across the Bahamas. On New Providence and Abaco, the daily curfew will move to 11 p.m. to 5 a.m., while Grand Bahama's curfew is now midnight to 5 a.m.
Cat Island will be moved to 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. North and Central Andros will move to 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. There is no longer a curfew for the Berry Islands, South Andros, which includes Mangrove Key.
That was not the only change announced in Parliament today.
The PCR test requirement for travel to and from Cat Island and Andros will be removed immediately. PCR testing to travel from Grand Bahama will be removed effective immediately.
Travel visa fees will also be eliminated for fully vaccinated residents who are returning to the Bahamas as of July 1st. Minis also relaxed restrictions for weddings and funerals, effective immediately.
New Providence funeral and memorial services will now be permitted in a church or other indoor facility in accordance with the health protocols of the Bahamas Christian Council.
However, he stressed that repasts are still not permitted on New Providence and Paradise Island, Grand Bahama, mainland Abaco, Eleuthera, Harbor Island, Great Exuma, and Little Exuma.
The number of people allowed to gather in groups on beaches and parks will be increased from 5 to 15 on New Providence and Paradise Island, Grand Bahama mainland Abaco, Eleuthera, Harbor Island, Great and Little Exuma.
When it comes to the promised vaccination day, when fully vaccinated individuals can enjoy the suspension of emergency order restrictions, Minis said this will take place once health officials determine that a sufficient number of the eligible population has been vaccinated. In the meantime,
private gatherings and other social events in your homes and elsewhere may now be held provided all the attendees are fully vaccinated. Wedding receptions will now be permitted on New Providence and Grand Bahama, provided that all attendees are fully vaccinated.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
3 out of 5 Court of Appeal judges, Stella Crane Scott, John Isaacs, and Roy Jones, have upheld Supreme Court Justice Ian Winder's landmark ruling on citizenship. Justice Winder ruled that children born out of wedlock to Bahamian men and foreign women are entitled to citizenship from birth. Winder departed from a previous decision which said that children born out of wedlock could only inherit citizenship through their mother. His ruling was immediately appealed. Attorney General Carl Bethel says the government will take the matter to the Privy Council, as he says there was a division of opinion in the Court of Appeal. He said government is not taking any position other than constitutional clarity, adding it is fundamentally important to know whether a specific provision of the Constitution is useless or whether it still applies. Well, 2 months from now, COVID-19 could be seasonal like the flu, according to Health Minister. Gillian Gray explains.
By August, the Bahamas could reach herd immunity, according to Health Minister Renward Wells.
That's our goal. We're seeking to get as many Bahamians vaccinated as possible. It is an aggressive time frame, but at the end of the day, all it requires is just the vaccine, the logistics, and a willing population.
He pegs the number of people needed for herd immunity at 120,000, or 30% of the population, which he says will be reached by September. But reaching that goal just 3 months from now is ambitious, as since the start of the vaccine rollout 4 months ago, the Bahamas has inoculated fewer than 80,000 Bahamians. Wells insists that when you add the 3,000 and counting Bahamians who have gone abroad to be vaccinated and take into consideration those who have been exposed to COVID-19 who may have antibodies antibodies, then it's not a far-fetched goal.
We also have a very large part of the Bahamian populace who would have been exposed to COVID. Our COVID numbers are somewhere around 12,500 persons. And if you take in those who are symptomatic and asymptomatic and those who are being vaccinated, I believe, as the Prime Minister would have said by August, we're looking to have achieved herd immunity in the Bahamas.
Most international bodies peg herd immunity at about 60 or 70% of the country's population. Wells says if everyone participates, then come September, COVID will be as common and non-threatening as the flu.
Our national goal is that we're looking in September to be a society where COVID for us becomes more like a circumstance like we deal with the flu on a seasonal basis, and it's not something that's whereby we have to have our society closed.
33,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from PAHO will be in country by this week, and Wells says they're also working with distributors and the U.S. government to obtain another brand of vaccine. The health minister says Trinidad has been slow to identify what variant strain is in the country, but they have enlisted the help of the CDC to get answers.
From all the discussions around variant is that every vaccine that is being deployed currently are very effective against all of the variants of concern. The Delta variant, as far as we know, there was a study done by Public Health England that says that AstraZeneca is at least 60% effective against those Indian variants. And so my message again to the Bahamian people is let's do this.
Now, the health minister said he is encouraged by the amount of Bahamians taking the vaccine and encouraged more to do so. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
A juvenile male and 18-year-old William Dean seen wearing a neck brace were charged in the magistrate's court with 1 count of rape and 1 count of armed robbery today. According to police reports, the pair robbed a 47-year-old woman of a Samsung cell phone, then raped her. The two were not required to enter a plea. They were remanded until August 9th when they will return to court. The pair was also charged with armed robbery of Nathaniel Butterfield. Well, shots rang out near the magistrate's court complex moments after 6 men arrived to be arraigned on murder charges. Here's Julian Gray.
Dozens of persons gathered outside the court to watch 6 men handcuffed and shackled to answer to the charge of murder. It got quite heated as family members of Stravante Moss shouted justice as 21-year-old Marvin Augustine, seen on crutches, and 22-year-old Romero Roll in the yellow shirt were charged with Moss's June 14th murder. They were further charged with possession of a firearm with intent to endanger the life of Chesney Bethel. The duo will return to court on October 6.
Just seconds after those men completed their walk and went into court, shots were fired and could be heard from the court system. Now, those shots were fired through this corner and officers went in and searched, but they said they found nothing.
The tense crowd dispersed soon after those shots were heard. Cop cars continued to patrol the area looking for where those shots were fired. Meanwhile, inside court, the remainder of the defendants accused of murder stood unemotional as the charges were read. When Shivago Gator stood before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt, she reminded him that there was a warrant out for his arrest, as he did not present to her court for a bail hearing in a robbery matter. He was charged with 4 counts of attempted murder for Glenn White, Justin Campbell, Kevin Solomon, and Jameson Jacobs, and 1 count of murder for the death of Eduardo DeVoe. Philip Taylor, in the blue shirt and khaki pants, was not required to enter a plea when he was charged with murder for the death of Leonardo Nottage on May 1st. Taylor was remanded and will return to court on September 28th. Alan McKinney, in the black Nautica shirt, was not required to enter a plea for the June 13th killing of Francesco Smith. He'll return to court on August 16th. Meanwhile, Justin Curtis, in the navy blue shirt, is accused of the June 11th murder of Lamont Johnson and the attempted murder of Tonika Johnson on the same date. He was remanded until August 16th. Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, 9,000 to 10,000 work permits are issued every year, according to the Acting Director of Labor. Here's Bertha Preservative.
In the past 12 months, a minimum of 1,200 labor certificates were issued on New Providence alone, while 800 were issued per month across the country, according to Labor Director John Pinder. He said once a labor certificate is approved, work permits are almost automatically approved.
When you look at the entire Bahamas, it's much more than that. And then when you look at a number of renewals we do. So in work permits, you can easily say we do about 800 of them a month. Yeah, so you look at 9,000 to 10,000 work permits issued every year.
In February 2020, Pinder revealed 40,000 work permits were approved. Pinder said the vast majority of permits are for Haitian nationals. He revealed that the Labor Department saw a significant increase in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian.
It increased a lot after the Dorian. In terms of number of, I noticed there was a large increase for the request of Haitians. Okay? But it certainly increased after Dorian. And then when these major projects come on stream, you know, they'll like the project going on downtown. Most of the places on that project are Turkish. So quite a number of persons came in from Turkey on that.
He said a large number of requests are in fields Bahamians are not interested in, including farm labor and landscaping because of the low-paying salaries, making room for foreign labor. But then there are other areas where officials have identified skills gaps.
Nurses is still a big shortage in the Bahamas, and so a number of the clinics and certainly the private hospital applies for nurses, doctors.
In an effort to close that gap, the Ministry of Labor, in partnership with the National Training Agency and the Tripartite Council, announced the launch of the Workforce Skills Gap Survey 2021.
It is designed, as said, to engage Bahamian employers and businesses to assist in gathering significant and critical data that would enable identifying skills gap deficiencies or skills deficiency by industry and also by island.
Now, Pinder explained that one of the goals of the National Skills Gap Survey is to cut that number by 50%. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Well, meteorologist Greg Thompson is in studio with a first check on weather. Good evening, Greg.
Thanks, Kyle, and welcome everybody on our Monday first look at weather. Taking a look at current conditions outside our studios. Temperatures warm near the 80-degree mark and humid. Winds are out of the southeast, very light, 5 knots, and your feels like temperature factoring in the relative humidity in the mid-80s. Satellite view around the area. That quiet weather continues across areas. That ridge continues to generate a southeast southerly flow, bringing in some Atlantic moisture, so we could see 1 or 2 smaller showers later on tonight through tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
All right, thanks, Greg. Still to come, cruise lines to invest millions in Grand Bahama Shipyard. Stay tuned. A man was shot and killed in the driveway of his Sydney Street home last night. According to police press liaison ASP Audley Peters, police got the call around 8 p.m. When officers arrived on the scene, they met the victim with gunshot wounds to the head and upper body.
Initial investigations reveal that the male has recently arrived home when a lone gunman approached his vehicle, tapped on the window. The gentleman came out and a struggle ensued. However, the gunman was able to overpower him and shot him several times before making his escape to a vehicle that was waiting.
Peter said police haven't ruled out the possibility that it may have been a robbery. The Prime Minister announcing that Carnival Cruise Lines and Royal Caribbean have agreed to a new combined investment of $350 million in Grand Bahama Shipyard. The Minister said the 2 damaged docks will be replaced with even larger ones.
Grand Bahama, Mr. Speaker, will become the largest cruise ship repair facility in the world.
Minnis said expansion works will begin as early as October. He added the government and the shipyard owners will work on a new partnership agreement.
This, Mr. Speaker, is definitely a sign of progress, a sign of hope, and a sign of confidence. So Grand Bahama, as was demonstrated at the airport just over the weekend, like the rest of the Bahamas, is on the move. We are coming back. This is one of the biggest investments in Grand Bahama in its history.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Up next, meet the veteran educator shaping young minds. Stay with us. This is Our News. Welcome back. Following a 40-year career in education, Vice Principal of St. John's College, Geraldine Romer, is saying farewell to the profession. She shared with us some of her amazing experiences.
This is your class here?
This one here would have been my first classroom.
Her laugh is infectious. Taking a look back at what was her first classroom brings back memories for Geraldine Romer. After 40 years of teaching some of the country's brightest minds at St. John's College, she's saying farewell and easing into retirement.
Yes, I almost ended. I started in the high school as a librarian. Then I came in, I taught grade 3 for 17 years. Then I was senior mistress for 10 years. Then I went back to the primary library, and so I was a librarian for quite a few years.
Now the vice principal, Romer says she's experienced all of the changes at this institution, teaching students, watching them grow up, and sometimes even teaching their children. She says while she's happy for a new beginning, it's bittersweet.
Make sure you treat the students kindly. They only want to know that you love them, all right? We cannot be too hard on them all the time. You must show them love.
Today was the last day of school for these little ones. Unfortunately, they spent a lot of the past year at home. But Romer said even though she knew she'd be leaving, she had something special done for them, a little inspiration upon their return.
He's an artist, actually. His name is Neville Roll, yes, and he did that for us. And when the children, by the time you hit the gate, you can see it. And so the kids were really excited about it.
While teaching thousands of students, the mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother has also learned a lot. She boasts of some of the bright minds she's had pass through her classroom, people living all over the world, and some names that might be familiar to you.
Vonique Toot. For this.
Vonique is one of your former students?
Yes, Vonique. Vonique.
What was she like?
A brilliant student, brilliant student. Vonique is a graduate of 2000 with my daughter. So I would have taught Andre Rollins, the former MP, who's not, well, he's a dentist. And there are just so many. My students are all over the world.
And as she parts with St. John's, Romer says she feels fulfilled, if only for the thousands of lives she's impacted.
The satisfaction you get, from seeing your students moving from a D to an A or from a C to a B, that is satisfaction. You feel really accomplished, that I have been able to help you to become, what you really want to become.
Congrats again, Mrs. Romer. Well, DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns take Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Marcellus Hall has that.
All right, thanks a lot, Kyle. Welcome to our sports on a Monday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. The NBA Finals are getting closer and closer. And guess what? We have a Bahamian in the running to perhaps be playing on that big stage. DeAndre Ayton and his Phoenix Suns taking a step closer as they took on the Los Angeles Clippers. Western Conference Finals getting started yesterday. DeAndre Ayton and his Phoenix Suns taking on the LA Clippers, Game 1 of the best-of-7 series. Suns without point guard Chris Paul still going through the league health and safety protocols after testing positive for COVID-19. Clippers, meanwhile, without the services of star Kawhi Leonard, out with a knee injury. Suns' Devin Booker was phenomenal in this one. He finished with 40 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists for his first career triple-double. Suns getting the huge Game 1 win. 120-114 ends up being the final. Ayton making his presence felt. He would finish with 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists. Suns continuing to play good basketball. Game 2 of the series comes your way on Tuesday night in Phoenix. And there it is, your check on sports for you here on this Monday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Kyle.
Still to come, remembering reggae artists, MDs. Stay with us. Welcome back to Our News. As we wind down, Greg Thompson is back in studio with our extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle, and welcome again, everybody, for our second look at weather. We're getting busy out there in the tropics. Of course, newly reformed tropical storm Claudette, moving off the United States of America, will continue to quickly race towards the northeast. Trailing moisture out of that across the northwest Bahamas will produce a couple of isolated showers, maybe some thunderstorms, but all in all, we expect weather conditions to improve across the area. We're also watching a wave down near the Panama area, some showers and thunderstorms associated with that. National Hurricane Center actually watching this one as approaching the Windward Islands, has about a 20% chance, but it's expected to run into some unfavorable upper level winds. And then, of course, we have a very strong tropical wave moving off the African coast. We will continue to monitor those systems as they move across the tropical belt. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the southeast to south at 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. While in the central and southeastern islands, we still have a caution flag posted for you guys down there. The winds east to southeast, 15 to 20 knots, seas running 4 to 6 feet over the ocean. Tide is presently high, will be low at 13 minutes past midnight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Saturday. Happy belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Do make it a great night, everybody. Back to you, Kyle.
Well, today marks the 2-year anniversary of the death of reggae artist MDs, and industry professionals are honoring his life and his legacy. Music of Devon MD's night lives on 2 years after his tragic passing. The Bahamian reggae artist is today being remembered as one who was on the cusp of greatness before his life was tragically cut short.
The sound, the content, the delivery, the value, as well as the strength of it is not going to be appreciated until much later. And it's because he really went a lot sooner than he was supposed to. And so
call somebody, let them know who's blazing up the radio. Our very own Mr. MD's night.
MD's music still blasting on the airwaves as radio stations here and abroad remember the musical genius.
And it's always great watching him perform. So I gotta say, while we're performing down here, he's still performing up there somewhere.
Radio veteran Natural Empress recalls one of his last interviews after being signed to a subsidiary of Bob Marley's Tough Gong label, where he shared his passion for wanting more for Bahamian artists.
And I remember him breaking down in tears because his only wish was to see the industry truly united. And he wanted to be the person to bridge that gap. So in his memory, I say to all of those in the industry to make that happen.
Like I tell them, we mightn't be the guys that make $100 million, but we can pave the way for that cycle to stop.
And while MDs, or Ds as he was affectionately called, may be gone, Big L says there's unreleased music on the way.
I would venture to say, definitely before the year is out, but I'm aiming to have something done before summer is even out.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.